Okay, we're live, everybody. Thank you for joining us at our live podcast at Royce in the House. And tonight we're going to pick up where we left off. I've got my co-host here, Lou Mars, fabulous musician, multi-instrumentalist, award-winning drummer, book writer. Lou, your book's coming out in August, right?
It is the hardcover.
The
Yay!
hardcover. Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. They do that
All
to
right.
get you. They get hardcover so you don't buy the paperback.
Yeah, yeah. Lou's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to music because he's a musician. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. Like I said, this is part two of rock and roll's best front men and women. What made them great and oftentimes even controversial. Okay, so that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. We covered a lot of stuff last week in part one. I mean, we started out with, Chuck Berry, doing the walk and all his on-screen antics. I mean, the guy could do the splits. I don't know how tall he was, but he had long legs. And he'd get up there and like spread his legs out, and then he'd start duck walking. And that was a great story. And went on to Elvis and another fantastic front man. And we just kept working our way through it. And I accidentally almost hit end the broadcast when I was clicking go live. Okay. That little dialogue box came up and said, "You want to end it?" And I go, "No," click.
Oops.
So anyway, so here we are. We're starting part two. And Lou, did you have someone that you wanted to kick off part two?
Yeah, I'm going to bring someone up that maybe a little more because last time we talked about some of the obvious, and I've got two I want to bring up right at the beginning of the show. One that's also obvious, but one that's not so obvious.
Okay,
now, first off, one of our people brought it up at the end of the show. We didn't see it in the messages in time, but I did see it, and that was Steven Tyler. Now, Steven Tyler's the obvious.
And I know he got brought up because we talked about Run DMC and Walk This Way, that comeback a little bit. Because I had that, I was looking at my list saying, I remember talking about it a little bit. There was a whole bunch that we just touched on that could use more.
But I'm going to correct you on that. I feel that was more about when we were talking about albums that made a difference because we brought up Run DMC for that.
Okay, that's true.
But we didn't bring up Steven as specifically a reason as a great frontman. And I think we need to give credit where credit's due because we talked about Robert, we talked about Freddie, but Steven Tyler, that dude, he wouldn't be a bad call for the front of your band, would he not? I mean, come on, look at him.
No, for the front of any band.
He's still moving. I love it that unlike a lot of the guys who have cut their hair off, he kept it long. He still looks like he's 17, even though he's a grandma-looking guy now at 17. But I've seen him recently on TV. Amazing.
No. He's fantastic. And you know what's really great is like, when I first moved to Atascadero, I was looking for a construction job, and I stopped at a job site. And Aerosmith, it was like 1977 or 7, I think 7. And Aerosmith was blasting on the job site radio. And the guy that was running the job looked at me and goes, "Yeah, Aerosmith picked up where Led Zeppelin left off." And I didn't go along with that, but I wasn't going to argue with him either. And
that's a little bit of a stretch.
I just saw Michael Nolan. Michael, are you going to jump
Michael,
on?
Come on. Come on, Michael, get on board, brother.
Yeah, get on board. Here, let me put something up for you, buddy.
I brought some wine for you. They need to make it so that we can hand stuff through these little windows, And
Right.
Why have we not invented that yet?
I don't know.
Almost everything in Star Trek is now here, so they should have that done. We have the automatic doors, the flip phones.
Right.
We just can't teleport yet.
Michael, there is a link up if you want to jump in here and help us out a little bit. Looks like we're a little shorthanded tonight. Let's see. We've also got Hit Space 1980. I got to say hi because I'm not sure I've seen Hit Space.
Royce, with you and me in the house, everyone's outnumbered.
No,
what are you talking about? We're shorthanded. There's already a crowd in the room.
No, I started out just solo.
I know.
Yeah. So no.
You were a crowd by yourself.
No, I know. And those were fun shows. I mean, I enjoyed them. And, they were much shorter. I'll tell you, they were much shorter shows. They might go anywhere from 10 to 22 minutes, and I would unbox one musician's albums and talk about them. I might do anywhere from 3 to 5 albums, pull them out, show them, talk about the songs, talk about the artist. And it was fun, you know, but the unboxing just kind of got old after a while.
Well, I'm glad you expanded. I'm glad to be here with you.
Yeah.
I'm even giving you a tribute with the hat.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, mine's a surf brand. It's Sex Wax.
I'm
on your
Royce.
surf, you know?
I'm thinking we need Royce in the house hats.
Oh,
and then the people could buy. They could buy your hat. I think we need to get. Oh, there he is. Michael's in the house.
Good to see you, buddy.
Can you guys hear me better? I set up the microphone on my iPad rather than this thing.
Yeah, you're a little bit quiet, but we can. Yeah, but there's no delay or anything. I just turned my volume up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got.
Yeah, I'm up now.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, no, we can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, cool.
And so anyway, so we started out. I just gave a little introduction. We talked about some of the stuff we did last week briefly, and we both agreed there was some stuff that we just barely touched on that could actually use a little more love today. And so it's kind of wide open for discussion. I did make a little list here, you know, and I think Scott Weiland was mentioned. Scott Weiland
we missed Michael.
Wait, what are we doing?
Michael was speaking and we couldn't hear him.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, he's fixing something. Yeah, he was speaking at the same time, but he was cutting out. But yes, to everything you just said, Royce, we didn't get to really talk about Scott. We didn't get to talk about Steven Tyler. One of our group members brought that up. We're going to talk about that. And then I've got a secret one guy I want to bring up tonight that I think deserves to be mentioned.
I heard about the secret one. I was wondering who you were thinking about there.
I haven't said it yet. I'm glad you're here, Michael, because I'm curious of your take on my secret man. I gave away this gender, at least.
Yeah. You know, you were mentioning Steven Tyler before I joined. And
yes.
Right after we all got through talking last week, I really started thinking, and he was a name that came up immediately. I started watching old videos here on YouTube. To kind of catch up on his performance, and man, that guy really brought, and he had and here's another thing, he had the flamboyance that we talked about with Freddie Mercury.
Flamboyance, yes, he did.
And here's the thing I'm going to be bringing up in my very next Led Zeppelin video, but it really comes into play here, is that there are basically two kinds of lead men in rock. You have the Freddie Mercurys, the Steven Tylers, the project to the last row 40 miles away, right?
A whole lot of projection, yes.
And then we talked about Robert Plant, and we did enough of that last week. But, Robert Plant is of the ilk that a turn of a wrist and you're playing to the first 3 rows. If you can't afford the first 3 rows, watch it on video, But, right. Steven Tyler, man, that guy could hold his own with Freddie Mercury in any room, and he could probably do it in his, what is he, 70-something, close to.
Yeah,
he's still out there.
Hell of a front man, and he's had his ups and downs. He's had his ups and downs too,
Yes, he has.
I saw a show.
And I understand that their manager locked him in a rental house and said, nobody leaves this house until you finish that first damn album, and Steven Tyler didn't tell anybody, but he was kind of going through the house and he wound up finding a box full of money. I can't remember the story, but he went down and bought himself, I think, a new keyboard with that money, and didn't tell anybody else in the band that he found the money. That was while they were locked away to finish an album.
That's hilarious. It's probably their pay he just spent.
As a musician, that's what I would have done too.
I
would have bought equipment, of course.
That's so cliche.
Right, Lou?
He was nicknamed Bonzo for a long time because when he played drums before he was a front man, a lot of people thought he was like Bonzo. I'm not making that up. I know.
I heard that too.
I saw a show recently, like you, Michael. I went and checked out some clips after the event because these these shows, and I hope for the people out there listening, I hope they inspire you to revisit some of these people we're talking about, especially if you haven't heard of some of these people we're talking about. If you're younger or you're new to the music scene, I know we talk a lot about the old, the vintage people, but we also bring up some of the new. So stick around. But with that said, I saw a show right after our show, and I was looking up some stuff, and there was a one where there was a drum riser, and there was a diagonal board in front of the drum riser. And I'm like, what's he going to do there? Is he going to run up it? No, he turns around and he jumps, and he was doing like jumping back with his hands, kicking his legs up, going back and forth. I mean, just full out. It's such a ballsy, risky move on stage. Anything bad can happen there.
Anything, right.
But that's how in he was. That's like when he gets on there, he's leaving nothing on that stage.
Right.
That's admirable. That's how much he cared. And next to some of the quotes he would say, some of the silly stuff he would say, like when he was at the award show and they showed up all in those leathers, and he goes, "It costs a lot of money to look this cheap." You know, that's just a great line, you know? And you know, that just came out of his head. That's rock and roll.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's rock and roll. Yes, it is.
I said, when he said that, I was just like, yes, it does cost a lot of money to look this cheap. Touche.
You know, I want to ask you guys, I know this would be hard, and I don't know if we could even do it, but when it comes to the Beatles, could you pick out a front man between John Lennon and Paul McCartney? And I know, Michael, I know you're a huge Beatles fan. Or is there no way to do that? You know, you've got three guys up front playing guitars.
You know, as you know, the other main band that I do cover are the Beatles. And
I know. Yeah.
Choose my favorite band of all time. Held at gunpoint, I would choose the Beatles, just a nudge maybe over Led Zeppelin. You know what? I think the Beatles were a band that had at least two, maybe frontmen.
Yeah, exactly.
But they were smart enough not to take over, much like what we're talking about Plant here. Plant had the ability to never take the show over from the other three. And John and Paul, especially with those two egos, always put the top spot, right? Right, Lou? Hey,
yes.
I mean, listen to this. I mean, these guys were so much on top. The egos that must have been prevalent, especially from 65 on.
But
when John starts to lose just a bit of the songwriting control he had early.
Yeah.
And of course, the easy answer is, well, Paul McCartney was the best showman of the group, except that John had this natural ability not to even perform, and somehow it was a performance. So but the band was wise enough.
Yeah.
You know, even Paul talked about this. The Beatles were a box, and there's four quadrants in that box, right? And each of them owned 0.25% of the Beatle universe. And if Ringo didn't want to show up at some ancient Roman ruins to film them live for Let It Be, what happened? It didn't happen. They were smart enough. See, the Beatles and Zepp were two bands that were too big for any one individual member. I don't know what you guys think, but that's my.
Well, I really like what you said about like they could keep their egos in check. You know, that's not an easy thing to do. You know, when you're such a good performer, great voice, great writer.
Right. It was George who even said the egos in that band at that time, and he was talking about himself in that particular interview. He thought he was God. You know, what do you do when you walk across the street and little old ladies ask for your blessing? You know, I mean, but no other rock band members ever lived in that universe, that box.
At that level, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll tag on top of that. So first off, George Martin had to answer that same question, Royce. That's a fact. It's in the books. If you read about it, they sat there in the recording studio, and that was his job, was to decide who was the front man of that band. And his decision was neither.
George for a moment. He considered
he did. And they decided there wasn't. That was, in my mind, if not the greatest producer of all time, definitely without an argument, one of the best, or the best of all time. That dude, I am not going to go over George Martin and say George Martin was wrong. So there's number one to answer that question. Number two, however, if I was going to be a stickler, If I had to, I'm gonna slightly, believe it or not, I'm gonna slightly edge John. Slightly. Here's why. He had the authenticity that, in my opinion, Paul lacked. There was something about John that was rock and roll that McCartney was pop. John was rock. He was like the soul of rock, and that was really important. And the movement, because of what was going on with the war, and John took a stand with the risk of losing everything. That's badassery, man. That's a front man. That's what I want to say right there. So I give him the edge. But George was right. There is no front man in the Beatles, and that's why they are one of the greatest bands of all time.
Well, what's also interesting is, I think I was in 6th grade when the British invasion hit America, and the Beatles were, Ed Sullivan and all these different shows. And what I'll never forget is the Beatles fronted the British invasion. I mean,
absolutely. They were the British invasion. They were the invasion.
And I mean, there was a lot of great bands. I've seen lists of
the Trogs and the Turtles. The Beatles kicked everybody's ass. Not even close. No,
I know. But I mean, Jerry and the Pacemakers and Eric Burden and there was the Dave Clark Five. There were some bands that were rolling out the hits too. But the Beatles were in a class all by themselves.
Kind of one period, I believe they had 3 albums with all on the charts at the same time. Hey, there's the man in red.
Hey, Dan O. How you doing, buddy?
Give me a chance to drink my glass here. You're trying to chime in.
He's got wine and beer.
Well, and I'm representing the 805. Didn't want to destroy my palate. And I brought some miniature paper towels I found.
So I mean, the Beatles didn't just change music; they changed our entire society.
Yeah,
I'll never forget. I've told this stupid story before, but
back to front, man.
All my friends were getting Beatle boots,
and that was a whole movie.
I was begging my father. I'm in 6th grade or something. I'm begging my father to buy me some Beatle boots, And he finally said one day, "Well, let's go up to the shoe store and take a look." I was like, "Yes, I'm going to get some Beatle boots after all." And so we get up to the store, and I go, "There they are, Dad." And he goes, "I'm not buying you those Ferry boots." And that was it. I never got a pair of Beatle boots, But I mean, it was the hair, it was a dress, it was the Mods versus the Cowboys in our junior high. I mean, it was just so much going on because of the Beatles, really.
One of my faves just got mentioned in the chat. I just saw Tommy. I thought it was Tommy. They said Mark Bolan. I thought it was Tommy Bolan. T-Rex. Am I wrong? For T-Rex, the original T-Rex group. I love it. Bang a gong, get it on. He drew the star on his cheek, came out with platforms and eyeliner. One of the first dudes I ever see do anything like that. Maybe it was Mark Bolan. Was it Mark? I don't know. We'll have to get a correction. Somebody out there correct me on it. Get me right. But yeah, that dude was a badass frontman. Remember, he had Elton John on piano too. Don't forget that, which may have helped launch that whole.
Well, Elton John was a hell of a frontman.
Absolutely.
I saw Elton John when I was, I think, 18 years old at the Las Vegas Convention Center where I lived. And every song he changed into a different pair of gigantic sunglasses. I mean, these were huge.
Don't forget.
And put another pair on,
Don't forget who begat Elton John, Liberace.
Liberace,
man, was badass. He came out all the giant chandeliers. He had all the sparkle glitter. He come out. Thank you very much. And he just brought that down.
3 or 4 years ago, maybe it's even 5 now, the way time's going, But Betty and I were sent tickets to see Elton John free at the Forum at Caesar's Palace.
Oh,
and
nice.
The Forum's not so big that there's bad seats. They're all good seats, And so Benny and I went to the forum, and oh my God, I hadn't seen Elton John, like I said, since I was 18 years old. And it was called the $1 Million Piano. Probably everybody's heard about that. And you can go on YouTube and type in Google the $1 Million Piano, do a search, whatever, and you get to see some of the videos. And believe me, go ahead and look at a couple of those. I mean, if he was doing a certain song, there was a huge screen behind him. And the reason they call it the $1 Million Piano's got like a band that runs around it that's about that thick or whatever. Well, that whole band was like a screen, and whatever was playing on the giant screen behind him at the forum, that same moving picture was moving across the $1 Million Piano.
Wow.
And it was a hell of a show.
Well,
if he was playing Rocket Man, there'd be this huge celestial scene that was moving, and at the same time, the same scene was moving across the face of his piano.
Oh boy.
Well, how about what Elton did with pinball?
A great band. He had 3 drummers. One of them was like the big conga drums, but the other 2 guys were on full drum sets. And he had a great band with it. It was a fantastic show. I really, really enjoyed it.
What about Jerry Lee Lewis, another piano player that rocked it, taking his leg up and hitting the keys? Remember that?
Yeah.
Pushing the keyboard out. Whoa, it was just so entertaining. Oh, that piano took a
fire. Yeah.
Oh my God. I saw that. Yeah. I felt it, man. I was like, oh man, I got excited with him. I'm gonna push a table. I gotta push something.
And he had his ups and downs. I think he married a teenage cousin or something.
Yeah,
and I think after that, his career kind of dropped in the toilet for a while. And I think he kind of worked back up a little bit because he was a very talented guy.
But him and Chuck Berry, it seemed like they couldn't find the more, it was like they were both in competition to find the most inappropriate lover that the newspapers could possibly write a horrible story about. And they had to live life on the edge. I mean, you have
on the edge, yeah.
The white version of rock and roll between those two. And boy,
that was rock and roll. That was rock and roll.
Their messages are legendary,
Don't forget,
it must be something. It must be something that's blood related too, because Jerry Lee Lewis, cousins with Jimmy Swaggart, and he had his thing.
Jimmy Swaggart, yeah.
Just horny bastards.
Totally different crowd with the same results.
So we now know what it takes to be a good front man.
But by the way, Lou, that was Mark Bolan.
Mark, was it Mark? Why do I think it was Tommy? Maybe it's the T-Rex. I thought it was Tommy. T-Rex. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Tommy from Deep Purple and other things. Yeah, I love
God. Yeah. Remember? Well, speaking of Elton John, he did that. I'll never forget the giant boots, and then he had the pinball machine with a piano.
Oh yeah.
Talk about a front show.
Right.
I didn't like his version better, but it was badass. Come on, if you didn't see that, just like those boots, I think are in the Rock and Roll Museum now. That's
they probably are.
Yeah, that's a badassery moment. Your shit's in the museum. Bowie, I know a bunch of Bowie stuff's in there. I saw that. Yeah. So
I got to show this because we were talking about this band last week, and it wasn't the next day, like Monday. I walked into a store and they had the Police's greatest hits for sale.
Oh, look at you!
This is a 2-album set, and as soon as I got home, I listened to it.
What about Sting?
I'm not going to do some big unboxing or anything, but I just want to show you guys. It is a gatefold, but I've got it in the sleeve right now. But these the sleeves that the albums are in are just awesome, heavy duty,
nice,
great pictures on both sides. And what's cool about this, it was mastered at the Abbey Road Studios, and it was also half-speed mastering.
Oh, good.
And what they say about the half-speed mastering, which I've heard of many times and have other albums, but
back when it was 2-inch tape.
But the records were cut using a specialist technique known as half-speed mastering. The artisan process results in cuts that have superior high frequency response,
sound,
treble, and very solid and stable stereo images. In short, a very high quality master that helps to create a very high quality record.
I remember when half-speed mastering really started becoming popular back in the late 70s, early 80s, and I was frantically rebuying Beatles albums at that point. And, Royce, you got to give that one a listen because I
listened to this already. As soon as I got home, I listened to both albums.
So how does it how does it hold up to?
It held up well. It sounded really good. I really enjoyed listening to it. Yeah, I know.
I gotta get a copy.
What are your thoughts of Sting as a frontman? Does he fit the category we're talking about tonight?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
And if so, why?
To an instrument, he did pretty much anything you could do and still play complicated bass lines, keeping the syncopation that the Police were so famous for. Did you guys also take note about they've got the new movie? I think it's a re-release because all of that footage I've seen before, but it's about their final world tour. It's just now coming out in the stores and all of that.
Check that out.
Yeah. I picked up a copy digitally and watched it the other night, and because I'm kind of catching up. Police is one of the bands I'll be presenting here. I've already mentioned that on my channel, but boy, it was so refreshing to see them. You almost felt like yourself slip off into the 80s. I highly recommend you guys give that a watch, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We haven't heard. Let's give Dan a chance to pipe in. Dan, give us a front man, man. Give us a front man.
Well, it's odd because I was just posting a video today of a good friend of mine who's also a front man.
Yeah, I watched that video.
Yeah, he's not really well known nationally, but he is pretty well known. But to me, he's the ultimate front man. I mean, this guy's got it all. Like I said, he hasn't hit the national level yet, but he's been in it. He's been in it most of his life. Band I used to work with. I worked with him for 7 years. I've known him for 27 years. Band called Aska. That's how I got my nickname, Aska Dan.
I have to check them out.
They were big with the military because they were one of the bands. Some of the music that they wrote back in 1988, whenever Noriega was hiding out in there blasting rock and roll music into the compound, and he finally gave up. Well, some of that music was actually Aska's music because they're actually originated from Panama, and
nice.
and then they moved up here to Texas. Eventually, found a home in Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they got publicity because of that Noriega thing. And when they performed in camouflage, just like they were military. And the Department of Defense liked it so much that they signed them up for this basically like a USO tour.
Right on.
They've performed in like 34 different countries. I can't remember how many world tours they've been on. And of course, they're relatively unknown. But any military guys that were over in Desert Storm, any of that conflict, they would see Aska. I mean, because
that's a great gig.
They actually performed on the battlefield. They're wearing helmets and flak jackets, ready to take cover anytime. Playing, and they said you've never experienced anything until you see 2,000 sober soldiers moshing.
I bet.
Well, Dan, I think it's hilarious that Noriega, hearing rock and roll was like fingernails on the blackboard. And he surrendered. He couldn't take anymore.
Yeah, I always joke about that about them. He hated your music.
Well, I'm going to bring up. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
No, but George Call is the lead guy, and
nice.
Like
where can we? He's on YouTube.
Yeah, you can look up. He's been in several bands. Aska's still his main band, I guess.
Okay.
But he was also in a band called Banshee. Another band, Cloven Hoof.
I know Banshee. Yeah, I know those bands too. I'm no shit.
Yeah, well, he's the lead singer. He's the lead singer in both those bands. All three bands.
Right on.
Now.
Oh, wow. That's a known dude.
You were talking about maybe even bringing him on the show.
Oh, I could get him on the show if you want him. I'll call him.
That'd be fun, man. You should.
It would be fun, yeah.
Well, I'm going to bring up a guy that's kind of a non.
You can do that. Let's do it.
I thought about this guy after our last show, and I'm like, and I met him, and I watched him live in a very intimate room when he did an album release. It was a private album release, and I thought, oh my God, this guy's got to be brought up. And here's why. Before I reveal who he is, he didn't jump around all over the stage, just like Robert Plant didn't have to. Robert didn't run up and down the stage. He could move a hand. This guy would dress a certain way, but not flamboyant. It was classy when everyone else was not. And he had a look and a persona that he could just stand there and he would emit this feeling, and the women went nuts. And this guy was Brian Ferry with Roxy Music. Yep. He wore a white tuxedo when he first came out with black pants, and he would just come out there and walk up the mic, well, the party's over. And then the women, and I was there. I saw and I felt it. I got to tell you, even I was like, that's a good-looking dude.
Started questioning yourself.
Yeah, I was like, I think I could date him. But I mean,
that's more than I need to know.
I know, but I'm just telling you, that's what's
kidding.
larger. You want to be him. He's larger than life. He was slick. He sounded good. He rolled through that, and the music, it was kind of like Elvis had that voice and that style too, but did all this stuff, right? Brian didn't have to do that. Brian didn't do that, and the girls were right there. So that is also a great front man. You don't have to jump around and do cartwheels to be a great front man.
Just some kind of magnetism there that just pulls everybody in,
But what's important to know, he had a look. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've always thought, because I agree with you, Lou, right as you were concluding, I go, he's got to be talking about Brian Ferry.
I could tell you were picking it. You figured it out before I got to the end.
Yeah, and at first I didn't know who, but it's interesting with Brian Ferry. Here he had usually the black tuxedo or very nice suit.
Always a tux.
You almost remember him with, a martini shaken, not stirred.
Yeah, yes, Sean Connery and Footman.
Cigarette with a cigarette holder, right? And then Robert Palmer being when
he did the suit.
With white suit.
Yes.
Brian Ferry established that genre right there. And of course, Avalon's one of the best rock albums ever.
I just listened to it again. The electric violin on Avalon. And to you violin and fiddler players are right now, there's a big comeback on the fiddle and violin right now, electric. But they're all overplaying, in my opinion. They're all, how fast can we go, If you listen to the Roxy Music album, they didn't have to do that. Matter of fact, the beginning of the title track, Avalon, it's almost like a cello. Well, the parties, he goes in that. It's really smooth. You don't have to play fast as you can. You don't have to jump all over the place. And that rock and roll is still attitude with a tuxedo.
Yeah.
Attitude. That's it, man. And you're right. Palmer, right after that. I mean, come on. When he did Addicted to Love in that video, who didn't love Robert Palmer? That's like saying you don't like dogs. Come on.
Yeah, Palmer was a blend of Roxy Music and ZZ Top. He had the girls that kind of identified almost like rock girls, ZZ Top, and then he had the antithesis, suave, sophisticated, whiter look than Ferry.
And let's give the Beatles a little credit back again, but it wasn't actually the Beatles. I believe it was Brian Epstein's idea. You guys can correct me on this. Weren't they one of the first? They weren't all in leathers. Wasn't it Brian that got them into suits?
Yep.
In the skinny tie at the cavern?
Yep.
So that was one of the first bands, a rock band, that suited up.
Right. And Paul would say, because for years after, up until when John died, John would always tell that story and complaining how Brian Epstein made him do it and him and George didn't like it. But Paul said years later, he said, at the time, nobody in the band was complaining. We had smiles on our faces and we dressed the freak up,
Yep, they pulled it off.
Yeah, John was famous for reinventing history, especially whenever he talked to Rolling Stone. It was something about Jan Wenner being in the room, or at least talking to whoever was going to interview him to make sure that the article would go Jan Wenner's way. And so they encouraged the hell out of John to really say a lot of bad things, not only just about Paul, but about being. I remember when those famous Rolling Stone interviews came out. I bought the first one. I was anticipating the next. I was in high school, and I believed that false narrative for probably 15 years after, because it was just another. There's so many errors in that set of interviews, the famous John Lennon interviews, and Jan Wenner, the wiener, was in the background manipulating everything, including even how John and Yoko reacted to the Let It Be movie, which was intentionally to make Yoko look bad, but John and Yoko wanted that because they wanted separated from the Beatles. And when they were watching the final edit, Winter was in the room.
Interesting.
Oh.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing happened on a recent Steven Tyler. We were talking about Tyler earlier. I heard an interview, and the entire interview was about drugs and about sex, and I was really disappointed. And here's why I was disappointed, because it should have been about the music. Steven Tyler, I get really tired, and if you listen to the interview, it's not Steven. It's the interviewer egging on. Every time Steven would start talking about the music, the questions kept going, well, tell me about the drugs, or tell me, you know, it's just like, and it got old.
Yeah.
And here's a guy that wrote Dream On, and what was he, 22? He was like 22 or something like that, guys. Dream On, that's a song that sounds like it's got a hell of a lot of wisdom to it. Amazing, you know?
I think it took him like 6 years to finally get that song out, though.
I wanted to
What's
give
that?
Lou a shout out here, Royce. You know, Lou, this is about the 8th time that I've seen you kind of gently steer the conversation away from the sensational, druggy aspect of some of these bands. And, you know, sometimes you do have to cover it. It's part of the history. But
I get it.
do have the whole attitude about let's stay away from the sensationalism too much. And let's get back to the music.
Music. Let's get back to the music. Hey,
Thank you. Yes, it's about the music.
One quick shout out. We have a fellow podcaster watching right now who's got a great show, and I highly recommend everybody go over and check him out. I've actually been on his show several times. Mr. Bizarro.
Oh yeah, he's back.
Yeah, he's been on our show before, but Mr. Bizarro's got a great show. I even went on a motorcycle ride with him the other day. Of course, I was watching him do the motorcycle ride, and he'd stop and he'd talk and he'd show us around the city, and then he'd take off, ride for a little longer, and get off the bike and talk again. But anyway, he's got a good show, and they play live music throughout from start to finish at the show. They're putting albums on, you know. And I've asked him how he gets away with it. And anyway, whatever. I'm glad he does, because it's a fun show. And sometimes he's kind of solo, and sometimes he's got 3 other guys with him. And they've got a genre.
I'd like to know how he gets away with it, because I keep getting people asking me, you know, to do reaction videos, things like that.
Yeah, I know.
Just trying to stay clear of the YouTube algorithm, you know.
Yeah, and you've got a buddy that does the reaction. I've actually subscribed to his show. After hearing you talk about him, and he does a reaction. He listens to an album and reacts to it. And and there's a whole bunch of people doing that, and they're actually a lot of fun. You know, watching these guys. Some of these things. Yeah, I know, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, Mr. Bizarro,
whoever the reaction video knows what they're talking about. You know, like Wayne over at Soul Train Bro. Now with a title.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
Now you would think, oh, this guy's got to be covering soul music, or
right.
And he's black on top of that, and he's covering, well, or was up until quite recently. He's backed away from the channel. He right now is just covering deaths of like, for example, he covered Alan White's death in a recent video. He's got some private life things he's taking care of, so he's backed away from the channel. But man, I know he has ears. You know what I'm talking about? People with a good set of ears.
Well, I got another guy I want to bring up that's kind of a interesting frontman that is off the radar a little bit. But you guys, I'm going to give you a clue. He's from the punk scene, so to speak. And when I first met him, he had a big mane of hair, but later on he shaved it all off. And I walked up, there was 3 bands playing. I won't say the last one, but the Minutemen were playing, UPS was playing, and the 3rd band was one called Black Flag. And at the time, I was fairly popular. We were met, and this guy was stretching up against the wall with these little, like, dolphin shorts. His junk was hanging out of one leg. I'm like, I don't know. He comes up. I'm serious. That was Henry. He turns around, I shake his hand, kind of going. And then he went on, and I'd never seen anything like it. I'd seen punk bands, but he comes out up front, and he takes his hair, and this is right at the very beginning of the famous hair whipping, and he starts twirling his head around. That whole band was whipping their hair so much that the part in his head turned beet red. I'm watching these guys going, holy shit, you know? It was amazing. There was like pinwheels of hair. But you know what? It was a great show. I couldn't stop watching. It was like a train wreck, and those songs and the energy. I personally didn't get the music, but I appreciated it. And I appreciated the energy that this dude was putting into it. He was just getting everything into it. And later on, when I saw him, when he cut all his hair off, he went the other way. And this is interesting because all of a sudden, now here's the same guy who's doing splits and his little dolphin shorts with the mane of hair. Now he was all dressed up, crew cut, looked like he was out of the military. He was all buff as hell. And he just sat there, though, and commanded that mic, and he still commanded the room, almost like Brian Ferry did, but not in a sexy way. It was somehow dangerous, like he's going to kill me, But he had this intensity. And again, that's stage presence. You can't teach that. You can't train it. And that's why that dude belongs in the category of great frontman.
Yeah, and there's no way to even put it in a category. I mean, it covers a spectrum. Stage presence covers a spectrum.
That young man
all over the stage, you can either be jumping over a double Marshall stack, or you could just, like I said, you're just exuding magnetism, and people are just blown away. You're not hardly doing anything. It's just there. You have it. Yeah,
and that's
well,
I told you too. When I saw Rage Against the Machine,
about the dolphin shorts. The dolphin shorts.
That's what I called it.
That really, nobody knows why I was sitting here chuckling to myself. And years ago, I was taking guitar lessons, and all of a sudden, the girl that went before me with the lessons was a pretty young blonde girl. And all of a sudden, my instructor was wearing dolphin shorts.
Were they hers?
Like what
It's kind of like the girl having your shirt. He got her shorts. That'd be awesome.
I got to give a shout out to my cousin Marty Eddings up in Washington. I haven't seen or heard from him in a long time, and he's enjoying the show. Hey Marty, thank you very much for showing up, brother.
So Marty, cheers.
Good to have you here, man.
Well, welcome to our nightmare.
I'm not going to talk about dolphin shorts anymore, so go ahead.
Oh, there's nothing like seeing junk out of a dolphin short. I can't get it out of my eyes to this day.
Well, I couldn't help but laugh when you said that because of what I experienced.
Oh my God. So what do you guys got? Who else should be on this list?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about this for a minute, okay? Well, we talked about Scott Weiland a little bit already, didn't we? I know it came up last time. But I never got to see STP live, but I've watched a couple of their concerts on Axis that come on. And I'll tell you what, that guy had a very unique, it was like he was crawling around almost, He had a very unique style. And when I did finally see him live, he was playing with Velvet Revolver, Slash's band, at the Paso Robles Fairgrounds, and we were right up in front of the stage, and but he was moving again. He's crawling. He's out in the audience, and he did every song through a makeup stuff, which kind of caught me off guard. He didn't always do. He's done that. He did that on other shows too.
It's like that Tai Chi thing, and he painted his body gold and shit. It was awesome. Little football pants too
all
low
over the place, and he had a really unique style, but he was a great frontman.
You take David Bowie. You take Steven Tyler, you cross them, and they give birth to Scott. There you go. That's it, man. There's the formula right there.
I thought he was like a cool front man, the way he moved around and stuff.
He was. And I'm going to throw in before him, I have recently rediscovered, and I talked about this before as well, they're starting to release more and more unedited raw moments with Kurt Cobain. And I got to tell you, if that guy's not on the front man list, come on.
No, Mr. Bizarro just mentioned Scott Weiland, Lane Staley, and Cobain as epic.
Yes. I mean,
you're right, Bizarro. Yeah.
Well, those
Kurt Cobain
from the 90s, man, right there. Those are the three.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that wrote the 90s, and all three of them have this one aspect. They were in another dimension when they were on stage. And half the time, all three of them didn't want to be there. It almost got that feeling.
Who do we leave off? Alice in Chains we talked about.
Eating top ramen,
Yeah.
It all added to the whole allure, It was
the anti-front man.
I'm giving it to you.
The anti-front man.
well, what's his name for Pearl Jam was like that. I don't want to be here. You know, right?
Right.
You're like, I don't want to be famous. And you're like, dude.
Oh boy, a young Eddie Vedder. The first couple of years, I would have put him on as a top front.
Oh, he was on fire.
Talk about swinging hair and that backwards baseball cap.
I'm still alive.
Recently, I watched it two or three times. It was Eddie Vedder and Beyonce doing a duet. And he referred to her as the queen, you know. And oh my God, his voice was so good. I mean, he really outshined her big time, you know.
I haven't seen that, but I do know the man's voice is incredible.
Yeah, it really is. It's great.
Yeah. One of the greats.
Yeah, it really is. He really
one of the guys that I saw do I believe I thought it was a Beyonce song, but it was I can't remember his name right now. He was in the band 30 Second to Mars, the front man for that band. He's got a great voice. He's also an actor. He's won awards in both music and film. He played in a film as a transgender in that movie about HIV. God, what was his name? I dated his girl. I gotta look it up. He's amazing. Maybe someone in the audience, can you help me with that? Who am I talking about? 30 Seconds to Mars frontman. He did a BBC station where he's saying it was either a Beyonce song or something like that, and he slays it. He's got these mirror sunglasses on, and he looks just killer. Good looking dude. Someone's gonna know what I'm talking about. He's got the look. He's killer. So let's find out who that is and throw him in this mix because he deserves to be there.
Okay, let me see. Sometimes the chat comes up with this stuff.
That's why I'm throwing it out there. If they're paying attention and not chatting with themselves for a change, they'll throw this out back to us.
Mr. Bizarro was lucky enough to see STP live in 1995. He said it was an epic show. And that Weiland had style. Yes, he did.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what I said earlier about him. I already made my point on him, so I'm not going to bring up. Go to the earlier shows if you want to see what I say about Scott on the differences between his clean.
Caitlin said Jared Leto. It wasn't Jared. No,
yes,
it wasn't Jared
yes, it was.
It was.
Yes, that's right. Thank you, Jared Leto.
And Shannon Leto.
He was also the Joker in one of the movies for Batman.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Check out that dude can sing, and he's also a badass frontman. Yes, thank you very much. Check out, type in his name and put in like BBC Radio, and check out how he slays this other cover song. But he's kind of like thrash, almost metal on some of his stuff. But all of a sudden he shows his voice, and it's sick. Wow. And he looks cool he looks so cool you hate him. He's just one of those things.
We've been talking about a lot of guys. How about Diana Ross?
Badassery.
Supremes, you know.
She was
fantastic, you know. She was.
She's one of the. I would compare her to, you know. By the way,
Whitney.
Dan, we were talking before.
Whitney?
I think we got on how there are kind of two approaches to being front man or front women in rock, and she's one of the laid back ones. You know,
yes.
She's just her. I mean, she'd shake a little bit, but not too much, and it was her incredible voice, you know.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't care for her, but I'm gonna
spent a career wishing he looked like her, right?
Yes, he changed his nose and everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Well, being a big fan of soul, I think I have maybe at least 4 of her albums, old albums.
No kidding.
And they're I've listened to them once in a while. Aretha Franklin, I mean, that goes without even saying. She was the queen of soul, Aretha Franklin.
Well, if you take...
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you take Elton John and cross Madonna, you get Lady Gaga. And Lady Gaga, whether you like her or not, she put on some big shows and some big acts, and she has a following because of that. That's a front person.
Joan Jett?
Oh, hell yeah.
Front woman, yeah. I almost got to see her on the Laughlin River run. This buddy of mine, he was a high roller, so you got everything for free. If you went with him, you stayed in the suites, and the host was always asking, "What do you guys want to do while you're here? Do you want to go helicopter tours of the Grand Canyon? Do you want this? Do you want that?" I mean, we're talking about somebody played two $25 slot machines like this and never stopped hitting buttons. Anyway, so it was, you know, so you got you'd ride your Harley Davidson to Laughlin. You got to park in the reserve under the canopy, you know, at Harrah's. And so anyway, so they gave us tickets to go see the Black Crowes.
Oh, another
So
good front man.
right in front of the Black Crowes front row. Well, all these crazy
Hey,
Woodstock
little
dancers
sister.
came up and were dancing with beers in their hand. And Dave was on the end seat, and I was one in. They kept dumping beer all over Dave.
Oh, you know, you
And
just
he's a little
too bad,
hot-headed. He ran back and got security, and they dragged these guys back out of the way and told them to go sit down. And 5 minutes later, they were back pouring beer all over Dave.
you made me think of Chrissy
Dave
Hind.
left at about this third song, and I sat there by myself and watched the whole concert. Well, he also had tickets available for Joan Jett. They would have been up front again. I go, well, let's go see Joan Jett. You know, the tickets are free. You know, I mean, sort of. And he,
Sort of.
he didn't want to even hear about going to another concert, so I didn't get to go see her.
Well, Joan Jett begats Chrissy Hind from the Pretenders. You know, she had the same look, same kind of presence, that toughness, but a little more on the femme side.
Yeah, she would have been cool to see too. Let's see, Lisa Beatty from 7 Year Bitch was a great front lady. Is anybody heard
Check
of
that out. I'm not familiar.
A bit more obscure, but epic nonetheless. That's cool.
Right on.
Janis
I love
Joplin.
hearing.
I love Janis Joplin. Yeah, you know, all those songs, you know.
Not in the female category, but what about Joe Cocker?
My friends all have Porsches. I must make amends.
Josh, other females.
No music, just her voice. What a great voice she had.
Oh yeah,
That's the most soulful
We talked
rock
about
and
her
roll.
last. We talked about her last session.
Yeah,
She was a
we did.
presence
I
on
touched on it.
stage.
Yeah, we did.
She was
Yeah.
big.
I just want to make
And-
sure the women are represented here. You know,
Madonna, you got to get her back in
Miley
there.
Cyrus. Who could deny Miley Cyrus's presence on stage?
Wrecking Ball.
Whether she's riding on a wrecking ball or backing up to somebody or whatever. I mean,
And I'll say the unpopular one right now.
that girl has stage presence. Let me tell you.
I think we should throw. I know some of you guys out there are going to hate me for saying this, but Taylor Swift, man, I'm sorry.
Taylor
She
Swift.
was a great front person. I know you're not going to. She outsold when nobody was selling albums. She sold more than anybody else. You got to give credit where it's due. You don't do that without talent. You don't do that without a presence. Taylor Swift, and she's smart. She's a smart business girl. And then she writes about all the dudes she broke up with. Brilliant.
You know, I have never heard. I don't know one song of hers. Not one.
Shake It Off. Shake It Off is a groovy song. I'm going to say that. Shake It Off is contagious. Boom, doom, doom, doom. The rhythm in that song, I'm going to admit, is catchy as hell. If you can't dance to Shake It Off, you can't dance. You know, that's all there is to
Well,
it.
she started out fairly teeny bop. It was kind of high schooly, you know.
Of course.
Talking
So
about
did Miley Cyrus. We just gave Miley Cyrus credit. And I'll tell you what, Taylor Swift is a better writer.
You gave Miley Cyrus credit.
Like if for Wrecking Ball, he brought her up. Wait, he brought her up.
Well,
I just said she had a Wrecking Ball. He brought her up.
I can barely.
it's true. I did.
Why would anyway?
I would have picked her as my front person. I think, you know, she's right there with like Justin Bieber to me. But again, you know, the younger fans would say, yeah, they pay a lot of money. Dude's filling stadiums, man. You got to be like, okay, he's putting on a show.
Did we even touch on Michael Jackson last week?
Oh yeah. We brought him up.
Yeah, he came up. Okay.
Which is why Justin Bieber exists. Which is why, you know, and remember The Godfather, James Brown is how Michael Jackson arrived. Michael Jackson, then we've got Prince, and then out of Prince we got Bieber. But anyway. Have you
guys watched the video of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductions where Prince plays the solo for While My Guitar Gently Weeps?
He shreds everybody at the end.
I've watched that video probably 10 times already, and I'll probably watch it again soon. What a great video. You've got, you know, so many stars. You've got Tom Petty up there, Danny Harrison, George Harrison's son, playing acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
You've got this all-star lineup. There's even what's his name?
Wasn't Paul on piano?
I did a show on him.
I thought Paul was on piano.
I did a show on him, but Jeff Lynne was there. You know, from Electric Light. No, it was
Yellow.
Okay, Jeff
Traveling Wilburys.
Danny Harrison, Tom Petty, Prince, Jeff Lynne, Stevie Winwood. I did a show on Stevie Winwood.
For some reason
And
I
you can
thought
see
Paul was on
Stevie
piano.
Winwood kind of up in the back playing the keyboards. I didn't realize at first that he was there too. But I mean, that night, George Harrison was inducted, Prince was inducted, and I think Tom Petty was inducted. All three of them were inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I just loved that solo that he played, and then he threw the guitar back over. and I understand that was all kind of, they were all ready for that. Somebody
just
caught
reminded me of somebody. I got to write down so I don't forget to mention, because that guitar throw you just said, I just remembered somebody. I got two to add.
If you haven't seen the video of Prince playing the solo on "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," you got to watch that, because he did such a great job. I mean, everybody that watched that, their opinion of his guitar playing is just went through the roof.
Yeah.
You know, I heard something. You know, we talked about Steve Winwood a minute ago. I heard he was late for an award show once, and when he got there, he had to apologize. He said he got stuck in traffic.
Oh my God. Dan.
That's good. That's good.
Dan, there's no excuse for that. Holy, I think I just
That
swallowed
looks a
my
lot
cube.
better than the Spencer Davis group anyway.
You know, that's almost as bad as saying Paul McCartney in his early solo career was winging it.
Oh, there you
God.
Right. Oh, our good friend Linda Foster's here. Hi, Linda. Good to see you.
Yeah, well, good way to get us out of that, Royce. Royce, I got two. I got two. I'm gonna be like,
okay, go ahead.
What are? Oh, Carson Swami. Here we go. I got Jack White from the Stripes. I think he should be mentioned. Speaking of throwing guitars and being underrated, and I don't remember us bringing this guy up last show. Maybe we did a little bit. David Lee Roth. What about David?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, he's a great showman.
I mean, he gets hammered for the vocals, but.
And I just heard the last few days that he may be coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good idea, but.
Yeah. So that's the same thing a lot of people think, but he's, he said that's his first retirement. He said everybody gets to come out of retirement 3 times. So
they do it in football.
That sounds like rehab. But I got to see David Lee Roth with his reunion with Eddie Van Halen
twice,
8 or 10 years ago, right here at the Paso Fairgrounds. And the funnest part about that, and of course, Roth wasn't jumping over a double Marshall stack, and doing the split landed anymore. But he still moved around pretty damn good. I was impressed. I can't do his moves, but anyway. But Eddie Van Halen, when everybody left the stage and everybody was screaming for an encore, Eddie came out by himself, sat in a little wooden chair in front of a microphone, and soloed for about 20 minutes. And that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I really, really enjoyed that.
Good show. They put on a good show, and maybe another show we'll do the classic David versus Sammy conversation, but not tonight, obviously.
Yeah,
that's a fun one to go rounds on.
That's a really tough one. But
it's fun to go rounds on that.
I think my favorite frontman was this guy. When have I ever refused an accommodation? You all know me here.
Oh my God, you guys, the humor tonight. All right, I got another one. I don't think we brought up this guy, and it depends what version you saw of him. Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh,
what do you think about Ozzy? Should he be on the list?
Yeah.
Too slow?
Yeah. Well, I have nothing but respect for a guy that eats bad heads and takes a leak on the Alamo. Right?
He kind of just looked always to me like he's taking little baby steps when he walked. He's like a little baby step like, all right, everybody, and I was like, he stayed so close together.
And he thought that was a rubber bat. He was just doing it, for shits and giggles, whatever you want to say. But I mean, he thought it was a rubber bat. And but I saw them in concert when I was 18 years old, and again at California Jam at the Oxnard Speedway, and really a great show. Recently, I watched a video where Sharon and Ozzy Osbourne were sitting in the front row at a concert, and Slash was up there with the band doing Crazy Train. And just you talk about one of these reactions, right? One of these reactions where a couple of young guys, guy and girl that have done nothing but listen to rap and hip hop, are watching Jimi Hendrix sing "Hey Joe," going down to shoot my old lady, and they're just going wild watching this, right? Well, watching Sharon and Ozzy watch Slash playing Crazy Train, just watching their little that was kind of cool.
I'll go to a throwback. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I've always thought Ozzy was a great front man since I started listening to Black Sabbath when I was in high school. I mean, to me, especially, back in those days, we didn't really have videos. We had the album covers. And, and my image of Ozzy has always been his arms up with the fringe.
Right.
From Volume 4. In fact, my background looks like the same color. But that's how. So when I finally got to see him in concert, it was like one of the best concerts ever.
Yeah.
And then, and little did I know, one day I'd actually get to meet him, and actually work with Sharon once. But
that's right.
Yeah, to me, he's always been a great front man, even if he doesn't move around a lot.
No,
everybody's got their eyes on him. I've been to concerts where people seem to be doing other things, but when Ozzy's on stage, all eyes are on Ozzy. So
sometimes one of the things that go ahead.
I was just going to say, with Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple, and Black Sabbath, the unholy trinity, there was almost an expectation on how those bands presented themselves. And I think when you talk about Ozzy in that context, he is a truly great performer. It's not like he's like Queen, like Freddie Mercury from Queen or anything like that.
Yeah.
He almost, out of the these three bands we're talking about, almost comes off like, gee, I almost don't know what I'm doing. But that's his song. That when he can bear it, he runs like a girl. But somehow he pulls it off so cool.
He's amazing. He's this little chunky dude going across the stage, and you're not laughing at him. You're all it's like,
But with all three of those bands, guys, the rest of the band just would not have put up with either three of those singers taking the front. Matter of fact, we were talking about Freddie Mercury. If there was a weakness to his performance, it can be said that Queen, the other three members of Queen, just receded further back in the stage visually, even though they didn't recede physically 1 inch.
Right.
And that was maybe the weakness of that kind of approach to lead singing, especially with a band like Queen. That was a band of four people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think Freddie could have been a little bit more careful on how he threaded that stage, especially the last 3 or 4 years.
Agreed. I'm going to go back to a communicator. One of the things I feel we've left out in our conversation, in my opinion, is we've covered the guys that are jumping all around. We talked about the guys that just got a look. We talked about the simple gestures. But sometimes it's important to talk to your crowd, to bring them into the music, to be verbally connecting. And I got to say, one of the best guys I've ever seen do that was Peter Frampton. Peter Frampton in 76 on the Frampton Comes Alive album. I was at Winterland as a young man watching that show. And I tell you what, he talked to the crowd. He didn't stop playing while he talked to the crowd. He talked to you while he was playing, and you were in that song with that dude. And some of his most famous songs, he's like, "Do you feel like I do?" He's talking to the crowd, and they're responding. Yes, we do. Yeah, that's fantastic.
That's right. I saw him in concert too, way past his prime. He was a free show at the Mid-State Fair in Paso Robles, and I was expecting to see this golden mane, that hung a foot past.
No, he's all shaved now.
He had a hair left on his head. I was like, that ain't Peter Frampton. But anyway, he put on a great show. Black Les Paul, it was a great show. Linda Foster wanted to know if anybody saw, at the thing for the Queen of England, Brian May was there. If anybody saw him on TV or anything, and Mr. Bizarro says Ian Gillan and David Coverdale.
I was going to bring up Jethro Tull,
epic frontman. Yeah. Ian Anderson, great. I saw Ian Anderson in concert at the Ice Palace in Las Vegas.
Presence.
And you see this guy out there with this tall guy, long hair, playing the flute all over the stage. Oh my God, it's like nothing you've ever seen before.
If we're gonna go pound for pound, and I'm not talking about Meatloaf, I'm talking about, I mean, just a monster strong presence. And although Meatloaf is amazing, by the way,
yeah.
I'm not dogging him. But I'm going to pound for pound as a joke. Okay, my joke is as bad as your guys. So Rob Halford comes out. Have you guys seen that dude? First time I saw him with Judas Priest post when they went to the leather. After they got out of the nylons, they were in leotards at first. He gets into the leathers. You hear the Harley fire up, and here comes this gorilla of a dude, bald. And he gets up there, electric, all this stuff. I couldn't take my eyes off that dude and that voice. Yeah, it's just this monster. He just looked like this monster dude. Great presence. It was a fantastic show. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the first metal.
Guys, I'm trying to hold the shows down to an hour.
Yeah, I know. We went over.
Yeah. No. But I'm thinking we could almost do a part 3. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, we could maybe.
If not next week, maybe a couple of weeks down the road, give everybody a break on this and do something different. But
more.
This could have many more sessions here. This is a good fun conversation, and I think people are enjoying it and they're interacting and throwing up suggestions and things like that. And I'm gonna make them an offer I can't refuse.
In the meantime, I'm going to see if I can get George Call to come on. Get an actual frontman on here.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And by the way, guys, I put a feeler out to the there's 5 marathon drummers, top drummers in the world, and I'm one of them. And I put a feeler out to the other 4. There's another record getting ready to go on. I contacted all of them, and all but one. We haven't got Indonesia to count in yet. All are willing to come on from their country at the same time to talk to us.
Cool.
How cool will that be? Only 5 drummers in the world have ever played over 100 hours consecutive. We've got the UK, Canada, America. I represent America, and Indonesia and Australia. And I've got a feeler out, and they said they'll come on our show all together and talk to us. Very interesting shit, man. I will. I thought you guys might like to talk to them.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and there'll be a wicked different times of the clock to be with us, but they're willing to do it. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay, well, I want to comment on my crew here, all the hosts here. I think everybody in the chat knows Lou Mars by now. Multi-instrumental.
I'm sorry.
Author.
Sorry.
A copy of the book's coming out soon. We've got Dan here, and Dan ask a Dan, and just the facts. Dan's
been my camera right.
Dan's been a podcaster before I knew how to spell it. He's got all kinds of great content on his show. And then we've got one of my favorite podcasters also, Michael Nolan. Michael Nolan, The Bottom Line. I highly recommend everybody go subscribe to Michael Nolan, The Bottom Line. He does a fantastic job. And, he's just really good at what he does. He's one of my favorite podcasters. He does a great job. And I want to thank everybody for being here. And I really want to thank the chat. I really appreciate you guys. Go watch Mr. Bizarro's show, too. Mr. Bizarro's got a great show. He's a lot of fun. And we're going to see you guys all next Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. And we're going to end the podcast now. So thank everybody. I really appreciate everybody.
Peace. Night, everybody. Right on, everybody.
Night.